Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today highlighting a winning tournament deck. But before we get into that, if you guys want to join tournaments, I host Twitter tournaments every single day around my lunch break coincidentally, and I put out the password on Twitter, so feel free to follow me there at clash_with_Ash. And also I stream one big tournament, $50 minimum every single week on Mob Crush, so go ahead and check me out there. I'll put the link in the info below. So this type of video is one I'm going to do pretty often now, and I'm going to really focus on winning tournament decks like this deck by Shreyas in a tournament that I hosted today. What I'm going to do is copy those decks and then use that deck exclusively in another additional tournament, and then I'll bring you guys the recap and tell you about how I liked the deck. So I used that deck in this tournament right here. It is a 100 player tournament here, and I finished 4th overall, so not too bad, and I used that deck. It's the 3 Musketeer deck. You can see the deck right here. 3 Musketeer, Miner, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Princess, Valkyrie, Elixir Collector, Zap, and Skeleton. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the replays. I'm going to show you my entire battle log for the tournament. You can see I ended with like 7 or 8 victories in a row, followed by, previous to that, a draw, and then I had a couple defeats here and there. Obviously, even winning people in tournaments don't win every single match, and you can see a lot of wins though, and that last defeat was not part of the tournament. So I really like this deck a lot, and it's good because it has some good defensive control, and then it has that big wild card in the 3 Musketeer that I don't usually try to break out right away. I like to try to surprise my enemy. I try to play the Elixir game in my head the entire match, try to guess how much they have, try to keep tabs rather on how much they have, and this is a great starting hand for me. So I always play the Elixir Collector if it's in my starting hand, unless they go super aggressive. So I wait a little bit and see what they do. I try to let them make the first move, but I'm not going to sit there in a stalemate for, for 2 minutes. So you can see here, this deck's able to easily counter a Royal Giant deck. You have the Mini P.E.K.K.A, so it's an awesome weapon. You have Skeletons if you want to add it to the defense if they don't have a Zap up, but you do still have to be cognizant with this deck going against Hog Rider decks, going against Miner decks that you don't have Barbarians, which is a very popular defensive counter card. Obviously, you guys know that. So without Barbarians and without Minion Horde, you do have to save your Mini P.E.K.K.A, mostly for defense on this deck. Obviously, you can turn those defensive uses on that Mini P.E.K.K.A into an offensive push, but you should, especially if you're going against a Royal Giant deck or a deck where you really need that high DPS unit, that single target unit with a little bit of health like the Mini P.E.K.K.A. You can see here, I keep the Mini P.E.K.K.A for defense, especially when I know they have the Royal Giant. So right now, I'm just kind of waiting for my moment, right? So right here, I'm going to use my first 3 Musketeer card because I didn't think he had anywhere close to full Elixir, and indeed he didn't. In fact, he used all the Elixir he had on those Barbarians to counter my Mini P.E.K.K.A, and then I'm really able to capitalize. Now, the reason I'm showing you this replay first is because this guy finished number 3 or 4 in the tournament. Obviously, as you guys know, I hope you're having a lot of success out there. I know it's really difficult to get into these YouTuber tournaments. They fill up so incredibly fast. I feel bad sometimes, but that's why I told you guys about Mob Crush, because my streams aren't that big. Usually I'll get in total maybe around 3,000 to 5,000 viewers, but that's over the entire course of the stream. Granted, this big sponsored Supercell stream for that huge tournament I did recently got 125,000 viewers, so that's not normally going to be the case. Normally that's going to calm down, and if I host these 300 1 to 800 size tournaments, $5 to $100 tournaments, hopefully most of you guys will be able to get in there in stream. And certainly, like I said, every single day on my lunch break I do host a $10 tournament. So hopefully, maybe not every single time, but as much as possible, I want to get you guys, my viewers, people who I know, the names that I recognize from the comments. I want to see you guys in my tournaments, not just random strangers. So hopefully you guys can play, and if you do play and you beat me, go ahead and tweet me a screenshot of your victory, and I'll be happy to give you props on Twitter if you are on Twitter. So anyway, back to this deck here. You can see it's really a marathon with this deck. You're not necessarily gonna 3 crown. I did get some 3 crowns, as you can see in my battle log earlier, but not mainly. It's going to be a 2-1 victory or a 1-0 victory more often than not with this deck. Now, sometimes you are going to lose a tower with this deck, but it also is a very aggressive deck as well offensively, so losing one tower shouldn't be the end of the world. What you want to do is you can still play great defense, and you can chip away with that miner on their tower until you have the enough elixir advantage to drop the Three Musketeer card. Now, of course, there's one card that absolutely dooms Three Musketeers, and that's Fireball. So if you know your opponent has Fireball, you really have to be clever with this deck, or any Three Musketeer deck, really. You really have to make sure that you bait your Fireball on something, and there's not a lot to bait it out on this deck. You have the Elixir Collector. A lot of people Fireball Elixir Collectors. But other than that, you just have to be really patient if you know they have a Fireball in their deck. You can see a pretty nice victory there. Like I said, against someone who was obviously skilled. They finished, I believe, first or third in the tournament. Let's go ahead and watch another replay. These more recent ones are against the top 10 people in the tournament, or the top 20-ish out of the 100. Let's go ahead and play this one because it's a Sparky deck. And I don't know if you guys have played in a lot of tournaments, but it seems like a lot of the top, maybe the top 10 percentile or so of tournaments are playing these Sparky decks. They're really, really difficult to counter, especially in a deck like mine where you don't have minions or minion horde. I mean, minions and minion horde are without a doubt the best counter to Sparky decks. So I'm thinking maybe if I was going to tweak this deck, that would be one thing I might consider adding. Maybe minions for the, just where do I add it though? Because every card in this deck really plays such a pivotal role. So, I mean, you can see here, I'm going to show you basically how to beat a Sparky deck here. And it's not easy, right? So when a Sparky's coming at you and you're playing a deck like this, the best thing to do is, you guys know about Zap, first of all. So I have Zap in this deck, and Zap will reset Sparky's attack timer. So Sparky takes 5 seconds to wind up or charge up, is probably a better verb there. But he takes about 5 seconds to charge up and shoot his target. But when you use a Zap spell, it will reset that 5 seconds. So that's a very important note. So what you can do is, you can drop a skeleton. Skeletons are very important in this deck, especially going against Sparky, for example. You can see, by the way, here, I'm going really, really heavy on the left, trying to take down that left tower, and I've just put skeletons all by themselves on that Royal Giant. That's one of the reasons the skeleton is such a versatile card. They were able to save my tower just a little bit longer, allow me to reload on the elixir, and I'm pretty happy about that move right there, going really super aggressive on the left push, and then just dropping skeletons on the Royal Giant, knowing he would do a lot of damage to my tower there. But anyway, back to my point about Sparky, right? So skeletons are super, super good against Sparky, because what you can do is drop your skeletons in his line of fire, and then immediately after that, you can drop a mini P.E.K.K.A. or even a Valkyrie, anything that you have, basically. I mean, you have to make do with what you have, even a miner if you have to. But basically what that will do is, it will give you a fresh 5 seconds to take down Sparky after you've essentially wasted a Sparky bullet, a Sparky shot, on the one elixir skeleton. So that is the number one way to counter Sparky, at least in a deck like this, is go ahead and be aggressive there with the skeletons. Use the skeletons as soon as Sparky is starting to pass the halfway point of the map, and then you can go ahead and drop your mini P.E.K.K.A. hopefully on that Sparky, and Sparky won't be able to get a shot off. I guess the perfect case scenario against Sparky with this deck would be, go ahead and drop Skeleton, and then immediately drop mini P.E.K.K.A. And then if mini P.E.K.K.A. gets distracted in any way, you can go ahead and drop Zap to reset the timer on the Sparky shot. So that would be my recommendation against the Sparky deck here. And you can see, with a Three Musketeer card, you just have to play it at the right time. Don't be super aggressive with Three Musketeer cards. I've seen a lot of people play them like really, really aggressively, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd rather really pick my spots with Three Musketeers. Now, Three Musketeers can be difficult to play in a lot of decks because one Fireball can take out the entire Three Musketeers. That's a really awful value trade there. It's basically like a skeleton taking down a giant skeleton. You don't want that kind of an elixir trade at all. But you can see here, they can be really successful if you pick your spots very carefully when your opponent doesn't have a lot of elixir, especially when you bust out the Three Musketeers for the first time. So guys, I hope you try out this deck and have a lot of success with it, and I really hope to see you in my tournaments on Mob Crush. Again, the link will be below. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know. I'd love to give you some love in the comments, because you know what that means? It means you're a loyal fan, and I absolutely love loyal fans. So guys, thank you so much for taking a little bit out of your day to hang out with me. I really appreciate it, guys, and as always, take care, guys.